So before we got Nicktoons, when Nicktoons started in 1991, there were two holiday specials, but one in 1988, one in 1989. One was Christmas in Tattertown, which was supposed to be a longer thing, but didn't because of Ralph Bakshi's controversy with Mighty Mouse The New Adventures. The other was Nickelodeon's Thanksgiving Feast. Obviously, Christmas in Tattertown is far more discussed because it's a Ralph Bakshi thing, right at the end of what might be one of the most influential TV shows of all time, with what Mighty Mouse The New Adventures accomplished, and everyone it introduced to the animation industry. I totally get why people focus on that. That's why I reviewed that. But there's a case to be made that Nick's Thanksgiving Feast actually kind of showed what they could actually accomplish with animation. And since, it wasn't just a pilot that they just sort of aired because they had it and stuff. This was actually a special they made to be a special, and they aired it as one. So this is actually sort of an anthology thing, which I didn't know. I thought it was just kind of done by the guy who did a lot of the Nickelodeon cartoon bumpers that you're used to from your memories of Nickelodeon. Joey Album, I think. Joey Album, who you recognize from the dinosaurs and all sorts of stuff. And those station IDs are great. They're great as station IDs. I don't know if I like him as much as I'd want to watch a show of that or a special, but I kind of got into it a little more than I thought I would. Sometimes it can be awkward. There was a weird walk cycle with the turkeys where it's I'm not sure if it's supposed to be a fake background or it's a real background. I don't know what's going on there. I don't really comment on animation cycles or anything like that usually, but that just seemed, the movement of that just was very bizarre to me. But it has some cool stuff astronauts having Thanksgiving. He has a thing where what do turkeys have on Thanksgiving, which is very punny. He's very good at kind of doing those kind of simple kind of color designs, which I think, again, works as station IDs. It just doesn't feel normal as it just felt so odd to me, that whole style. But that kind of, they have various cartoons within it and bookends these other cartoons. Most of it is done outside of the two cartoons is done in that. He's a lot of spare things, they get cranberries. It was cranberries in cans. There you go. No, they're called crush berries. No, it's not cranberries. Raspberries? Anyway, his elephant's crushing things in a can. He has a lot of punny things where, I did sort of get used the jokes enough that I was this design's sort of weird watching this. Is not just someone going nick and it actually being a thing was a little bizarre. But I still prefer his logos to this. The animation didn't look as good. Clearly they're spending a ton more on a logo and giving him more time. There's a couple instances in the special where you can tell that they did not give the animators enough time to fully finish the special, which I think was not great. But Nickelodeon was very new to the animation game at the time. They have two things. One is Thanksgiving Nightmare and one is Thanksgiving Dream. Thanksgiving Nightmare is directed by Kevin Altieri, who would later work on Batman the Animated Series and co-direct Pearl Jam's Do the Evolution. So he has an illustrious animation background. Now, as I say that, this is not to the quality of those two at all. But it is sort of fun. This one kind of, I think, could work. It's just too much going on. Basically, you have this family having Thanksgiving. A mouse sees that they're eating Thanksgiving, and a roach sees that they're eating Thanksgiving, and they both decide, they're going to eat this Thanksgiving dinner when they leave. But they have a cat who will, of course, defend the Thanksgiving dinner, because if he doesn't, the people will throw him out. We'll just basically make him an alley cat. They're going to get rid of him if he doesn't take care of the Thanksgiving dinner. These people are not great pet owners. But the problem with this is if it was a mouse and a roach and a cat, it's okay, that's a different spin on a Tom and Jerry thing. But then there's an army of mice, there's an army of roaches. It's just at a certain point there's all these characters fighting and stuff, and the animation isn't great enough. They have a lot of times where, especially in this one, they'll stay on something to show in a 40s cartoon you'd see that and you go, this animation's so great, clearly this animator wanted to show off his swimming cycle or some crap. And in this, they show you and you're that's what, why did you, it's they're used to the kind of flow of that kind of animation, but they don't think of why they use that flow. And I do think they kind of overdid it. If they had just maybe had 3 roaches or something. I think it's just been a roast and a mouse. It's too overly complicated. It's not honestly that funny. And then the other one, Thanksgiving Dreams, which is directed by Joe Pearson. He worked on Rocko's Modern Life later, but this Thanksgiving Dreams is about a poor family who it's during the Depression, and they really hone in on there was no video games or TV or even sneakers or the internet, or they didn't even know what that was in 1989, but they still didn't have that, and how things were rough and nobody had jobs, and it was I hate holiday specials that really hone in it was so rough being poor, but then we had this amazing holiday, and it was okay for a day, and then we were oh crap, we should have saved leftovers. I don't know. I really don't like that narrative. I think it's far too melodramatic. I think people should help out poor people and stuff, but it just never. I don't know. It just comes off as way too sappy and saccharine. And the opening of this does, but it also feels clearly they didn't finish the animation because it's just these frames that fade into each other and stuff. I don't know what was going on. I was is this going to be the whole cartoon? I was immediately not into that. But then the kids go to bed and they have a dream that all the food and everything would sort of make itself, and through the magic and through their dreams they have a wonderful Thanksgiving and everything like that, and it's wonderful. And that part is fun. You see them ice skating on butter and stuff like that. It's funny. They make bread, and then the bread sneezes and all this stuff. And then the mom wakes up and they have a wonderful Thanksgiving. That they actually did animate. They didn't do all the weird fade picture thing. And I think they probably went well, we don't have enough money to do this whole short. They picked the part that you'd want to see animated. I've heard a couple people, and I think another review bring up, they should have just made those fade things look like that was the reality and the animation was the dream. They chose not to do that. They just, when they wake up from the dream, it's just normal animated. But that's fine. Whatever. That part was ugly anyway, so I was glad to be done with it, regardless of it, thematically made sense. It's a fine little special. It sort of reminded me, if you're homesick from school and found a seasonal special, you'd sort of just put up with it no matter what it was. And I was actually sick at the time, sick from work, so I guess it fit that. And it held my daughter's attention, actually, which I was a little surprised by. I was a little worried halfway through. It was is she really going to be into this? But she was definitely watched the whole thing, didn't walk up and leave and get bored or anything. This special was much more of a success, and it did show that there's a future with animation at Nickelodeon, and they actually re-aired it from 1989 to 1996. I was watching Nickelodeon a lot in those years, and I do not remember this special at all. I sort of remember some parts, and I wonder if they use them as station IDs, because I think they clearly could. And would you notice? You probably would not notice. And yeah, I think this is a nice little special. It's a nice little peek into Nickelodeon's early animation past. It kind of is so inoffensive and sort of boring. It's the personality of the Nicktoons isn't really there in this. They clearly, I think the combination of this and Christmas in Tattertown shows you what Nick would really come up with, whereas they would find an auteur, but they'd also find a way to make it sort of successful, which I guess in Ren and Stimpy there are issues there, but I think this shows they sort of knew how to get it to work under the limited means they could, and it did all right for them, and they kept re-airing it and so forth. But it's not an amazing special. It's notable because it's the second thing Nickelodeon did that was animated that they originally produced. But other than that, I'm not gonna watch this again. I like the Joey album stuff a little bit. I've been thinking about that more than the 2 cartoons in it. It's a nice little fine special, but it's nothing you should really go out of your way for. It's just sort of okay, that's a Thanksgiving special. It doesn't deserve to be on the list of the all-time greats, but I'm thankful that it was successful, and I'm thankful for what it brought. So I guess I'm happy that it happened, but I don't necessarily think I need to see it again.